It's time for the Cinema Chronicles. Hey, it's me, Brandon Vick, member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association and board member of the Music City Film Critics Association. Happy to be here on the day that my buddy Stoney turns 40 years old. It has been, we've already celebrated, we've already have danced to Kesha, and I even tried to do the splits. Was at Summit Hospital for, about 16 hours. But I turned 40 as well. I got a few months, but I bring this up not to announce our age to everybody, but for some reason, since I have met my now wife, June and July is just birthday mayhem. I don't guess I've realized how much is going on when it comes to birthdays for these 2 months, but I was looking at our calendar, and this month we've had my in-laws' birthdays, one of my nephew's birthdays, Stoney's birthday. July is another nephew's birthday, my parents' birthdays, one of my brother-in-law's birthdays, and go ahead and throw in Father's Day and July 4th in there. So it's been pretty knuck and futz if you're in my house on trying to keep up with everything and everybody. It's fun. I mean, to celebrate people's birthdays, it's fun, but it's just sometimes it just doesn't feel like you have enough time in the day or the week or the month. But yeah, it was a nice little shindig we had for Stoney. So sorry for those who didn't get invited, I guess. It was pretty exclusive. But yeah, I just and then I started thinking about my birthday and what do I want to do? I think we're past the age of having these huge birthdays. Stoney was quite known for having 30, 40 people for his birthday. So he did it up big. I had a few people, not as many as that. And most of the time I think it involved probably going to a movie or something like that. But these days, we keep the group small. And I really think I've kind of leaned on maybe just renting a boat, a pontoon, and just going out there for 4 hours, 8 hours, forever. Who knows? But we'll see. So anyway, if anybody knows anybody that has a free boat, just email us. Maybe I can, always looking for discounts, trying to raise my family. So, but anyway, listen, you're here to listen about movies, and I've got three heavyweights here. And I think let's go ahead and start with the return of the one and only He-Man next. Masters of the Universe. So before we get into this thing, I feel like I have to be pretty transparent here, and I didn't really grow up with He-Man and the whole Masters of the Universe thing. I think it really went from like early 80s to late 80s, so by the time I'm really like playing with toys, getting into them in the 90s, I'm doing like G.I. Joes and Ninja Turtles and things like that. So I didn't really grow up with them. I do remember the cartoon a little bit, and I remember seeing, like, I felt like they had action figures, but they were like really small. Now I think most people, if you didn't even know it was a cartoon or anything else. Perhaps you know Masters of the Universe because of that 80s cult classic that had the good old Dolph Lundgren in it that I have not seen in its entirety. So, but here we are, 2026. Masters of the Universe is back by popular demand. Per Rotten Tomatoes, in Masters of the Universe, director Travis Knight brings the legendary franchise back to the big screen in this epic live-action adventure. After being separated for 15 years, the Sword of Power leads Prince Adam, played by Nicholas Galitzine, back to Eterna, where he discovers his home shattered under the fiendish rule of Skeletor, voiced, I guess played as well, by Jared Leto. To save his family and his world, Adam must join forces with his closest allies, Tila, played by Camila Mendez, and Duncan/Man-at-Arms, Idris Elba, and embrace his true destiny as He-Man, the most powerful man in the universe. So this is a weird and wild and vibrant world that's definitely nostalgic to the nth degree, but it's also a fun and classic adventure movie that really does play out like the Saturday morning cartoon come to life. As mentioned before, director Travis Knight, he's director behind Bumblebee and Cuba in The Two Strings. He feels like the right filmmaker to have the power to take on Masters of the Universe. This is per Geeks of Color. They had an interview with him, and they asked, "What does Masters of the Universe mean to you?" And he says, "It was a huge part of my childhood. I distinctly remember when I was first exposed to it, and it was so different than anything I'd seen before. Every right-thinking person was a Star Wars fan at that time, so that was my big introduction to sci-fi, blending sci-fi and fantasy. Masters of the Universe was that, but it was kind of weird, psychedelic, strange, and playful. It just felt like it shouldn't exist. It felt like someone took a bunch of ideas, threw them in a blender, and spewed them out. I was delighted by all of it. I had the toys. I read the little mini comics when the cartoon came out the next year. I loved the cartoon. I remember rushing home after school and watching the He-Man, She-Ra, Power Hour. The greatest kid Christmas gift I ever received was the Castle Grayskull playset. That was my Red Ryder BB gun. I've been in a steady administrative decline since. That was the peak." Now, I say for Masters of the Universe, almost from the start, it's apparent that Knight is well aware of the property's goofy elements. It's campy, offbeat, with an abundance of retro nourishment. He had no problem embracing that in full force. IndieWire did an interview with him, and it says, "Travis Knight made Masters of the Universe because he really loves it, and he thinks you will too." And the reason I'm including this is because they ask, so how do you make fun of and honor something at the same time? He says, "It's hard to do. It's definitely a tightrope to walk. I don't like this trend where these things are looked at ironically, looking down our nose at the story we are telling. I don't believe in that at all. There's something inherently goofy about this world and these characters. I don't think that's something to look down our nose at, but something to wrap our arms around. But you have to acknowledge it. Yeah, we know this is silly, but we also love it. It's not done with a judgment. It's done with affection." A little bit later in that same interview, it says, "We are never passing judgment. We love it. We know it's silly, but we love that aspect about it. I felt if we have an emotional center, that gives you license to do some of the stuff because we will always have the core of it that remains." He says, "I think we did that." I'm not so sure about that emotional center that he thinks they got right. Masters of the Universe has its moments of showing a big heart and sensitivity, and as it kind of focuses on like one's true strength, though it does spend most of its unnecessarily long runtime, it's almost 2.5 hours, showing off its big muscles and taking us on a big, dumb, fun, and entertaining voyage. There's no denying the messy tone and its difficulty of maintaining momentum. It also tries way too hard to be funny, almost embarrassingly so. However, the movie also nails a lot of stuff. This is a review that was written by Clint Worthington for RogerEbert.com. And it says, "To its credit, Masters of the Universe leans hard into its 80s hair metal aesthetics in some delightful ways. Modern effects make Eternia look like a particularly glossy playset, and Richard Sale's costume designs do their level best to adapt the various costumes into something workable while retaining their cartoonish boldness. It says Daniel Pemberton's rock guitar heavy score keeps the action chugging along. It's pretty clear the cast is having a blast, even if some don't have much to do. But Nicholas Galitzine doesn't just look the part as He-Man. He has the charm. He has the childlike wonder of a guy who's just super excited to go back home and swing a big sword around. He's just geeking out. He plays it off pretty well as someone who doesn't feel all that comfortable about who he is on Earth or Eternia. And by the power of Grayskull, Galitzine is a solid He-Man for a new generation. Continuing on Clint's review on Roger Ebert, he says, which brings us to Leto, who, I hate to say it, is incredible in this. The actor's been trying to transition into an A-list movie star for quite some time, but I think roles like this and Blade Runner 2049 bring out his innate diva in ways that actually serve those films well. Even through a meticulously CGI'd skull, Leto brings out a welcome bitchiness to Skeletor that jives well with his 80s conception as a pure villain. He purrs with a Tim Curry-like effect and cackles with devilish glee. He tries to get his minions to join him in his evil laughs. A late film mind torture sequence places him in various novel contexts you have to see to believe, but you'll cackle all the same. I have read, and I don't know where, maybe it's just an internet thing, but I've read that Skeletor is actually Leto's favorite, was Leto's favorite character growing up. And as you could tell from that review, it shows, because he is arguably the best thing in the entire movie. He chews up every scene with ease, and it's enjoyable as hell to watch. For everything this version of the Masters of the Universe hoped to be, Leto's Skeletor is the pinnacle of all of it. You know, I think because I didn't grow up with him, I think the expectations for me just weren't that high to begin with. So what came, and I've seen comparisons, and I don't think Masters of the Universe is as good as this other movie. And I also don't think it plays as well to its strengths and within the kind of playfulness and sincerity of it, but it does kind of remind me of the Chris Pine Dungeons and Dragons movie. I never played Dungeons and Dragons, but it was just a very fun, entertaining movie. I don't think Masters of the Universe is on that level, but it certainly has signs of that, which is what made me, I think, enjoy it for what it is. I just read where I think it's going to cost Amazon MGM hundreds of millions of dollars, so I have a feeling this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, kind of summer box office flops of the year. But again, I enjoyed it, and I would not mind seeing a sequel, which they do tease in the mid-credit, and I think there's even a post-credit, but the mid-credit one, I think, is what people will enjoy most. So Masters of the Universe is getting a VixFlix rating of 3.5 out of 5. And coming up next, the Wayans brothers are back. We just got to grab that strong hand. What's up? Get it? Scary Movie's back is what I meant to say. I guess to be cool, it's Scary Movie. This is technically Scary Movie 6, but just Scary Movie for us in 2026. No reason to make it seem old and out of touch. So this is the first Scary Movie that the Wayans brothers have been involved with since the second one. Now, I didn't realize this, but the internet told me that after the record-breaking success of Scary Movie and Scary Movie 2, the Wayans had asked for a raise. The Weinsteins, Harvey and Bob, you may have heard of them, offered them a fraction of what they requested, only matching what they made from the first movie. And they say that when the Wayans brothers refused, that the Weinsteins secretly moved forward without them, stealing their ideas for the third film and handing the reins to David Zucker. The brothers found out they were entirely removed from the franchise through an announcement in the press. So this is a big deal. Scary movie, Wayans brothers, everyone's back together again. It must be hilarious. Let's start with Rotten Tomatoes. Tell you what it's about, which I don't know if anybody really needs this, but 26 years after outrunning a suspiciously familiar mass killer, Shorty, Ray, Cindy, and Brenda find themselves targeted by another mad slasher. So after a 13-year hiatus, this sixth one has a plethora of new horror movie victims to poke fun of. But regrettably, the Wayans seem clueless as how to do it and to actually make it funny. This shiftless rebootical, as they referred to it in the movie, almost immediately feels outdated after a splendid opening. But once it's over, they have the main focus just to be another Scream spoof. And I feel like there's so many different directions we could have taken instead of, again, having the main thing be a Scream again and Ghostface Killer. Scary Movie goes hard at trying to cram in almost every horror movie from basically 2024 to 2025, with cameos and franchise fan favorites thrown into what feels like stupid, silly, and sometimes stale skits rather than any kind of coherent story. But listen, I mean, who are we kidding? These movies have always been more about parody than plot. And this one is also very meta, and it's no surprise the Wayans wind up having a lot to say about legacy now that they have returned to the franchise. Not every joke works, but there are certainly some laughs that come from the absolute total ridiculousness of it all. Some references are pretty good, while others are really just total waste of time. The biggest joke of all, though, I hope you're listening, is the marketing strategy. Because it suggests that this scary movie will offend everyone and every line will be crossed. It sits on a throne of lies. Scary Movie ain't got shit on the age we're currently living in. There are things, and I won't reveal them here even though I know it's been out for a little bit, that just because a name shows up or there's a mention of, Democrat or MAGA or whatever, that's not pushing the envelope. It's not crossing a line. It's sort of sad that's what the Wayans brothers consider to be edgy or, controversial, provocative. I will say it is cool though to see all of the original cast back together again in their signature roles, though they don't really quite have the magic that they used to. And it's quite stunning how underutilized Anna Faris and Regina Hall are. Scary Movie is dumb entertainment, but I didn't think it was that dumb to do that to their two comedy gold ladies. It honestly, it doesn't really make any fucking sense. You would think with the Wayans brothers coming back and having them too, that there would be something. I don't know. I just felt like there was so much, not only to do with the story, but to do with that, so many opportunities to have them do different stuff, and it's a bit disappointing to say the least. Scary Movie 6 clearly doesn't come close to the first two movies, and while I've seen the other three, I can't really tell you shit about them. I just wanted this Scary Movie to make me laugh. It's really kind of going back to kind of reliving those good old days when spoofing was lit, as the kids say. But it just can't get there. At the end of the day, I think we all know what these movies are, and perhaps there's enough here for some longtime fans to walk away feeling entertained. But personally, I think it's rather obvious that this series is well past its prime, and this is not a comeback to brag about. Scary Movie 6 gets a VixFlix rating of 2 out of 5. And coming up next, The Greatest Showman with a Bow and Arrow. Randolph the Gray next. In case you're confused, I'm talking about the death of Robin Hood. If you've seen just a small piece of a trailer or even the poster, Hugh Jackman looks like Gandalf the Grey. And in the movie, he tricks people and tells them that his name is Randolph. So, Randolph the Grey. Per Rotten Tomatoes, grappling with his past after a life of crime and murder, Robin Hood, played by Hugh Jackman, finds himself gravely injured after a battle he thought would be his last. In the hands of a mysterious woman, played by Jodie Comer, he is offered a chance at salvation. So this comes from the writer and director of Pig, which is a fantastic movie, one of Nicolas Cage's best performances. Michael Sarnowski's adaptation of Robin Hood is a bleak one. He sets out to deconstruct the legend, to show us a tired old outlaw whose past sins continue to constantly come back for vengeance. It's a reckoning that's quiet and heavy. Jackman himself, he turns in stellar work here as our tragically flawed title character. The grizzled look alone that he's flaunting here is fantastic, but there's a ferociousness and gravitas that he brings to the role that is outstanding. Via IndieWire, there's an interview by Ann Thompson. The title is called Hugh Jackman on his brutal new Robin Hood and why he's suddenly dying in all his movies. But in this interview, she asked, the movie is about the end of Robin Hood's life. How much do you know about the historic figure? And Hugh Jackman says, I read a bunch of books about it. If you wanted to believe he was real, you can find evidence for that. There are records of people through the centuries since the 1100s, and it changed. Up until the 1500s, he was just an outlaw, horrible person, a cautionary tale. Then, as things started to change politically in England, there was the beginning of that feeling of an uprising by the serfs against the aristocracy and the landowners, and this cultural hero rocking the boat and stealing from the rich to give to the poor started to be birthed. Even at the beginning, if you watch him, he was a bad guy with some honorable traits. He had some rules like do not harm women, so his outlaws would never touch a woman, or he would give someone a second chance if they were lying to him, so that he gradually became the hero. These myths arise for a purpose, for a need that already exists. So the death of Robin Hood, it's brutal and bloody and barbaric at first, then becomes this melancholic, reflective character study. It's a tender yet sluggish meditation on mortality. And while I can certainly appreciate the ambition and approach, the film's slow pace and lack of just a more intriguing narrative holds it back from being something, I think, truly fascinating. However, that doesn't mean that there aren't several complementary components within the film that do push it closer to hitting its target. There's Pat Scola's gorgeous cinematography, the stunning locale, the superb score, and the production and costume design is incredible as well. Bill Skarsgård is in this, as well as Jodie Comer. They're both great, but I can't help but feel as though they had more to contribute, but I just don't think the script gave them room to do so. Sarnowski's gutsy and grim interpretation of our arrow-shooting folk hero is inarguably attractive and quite tedious too. But through it all, what we eventually get out of this journey of redemption is gratifying enough, but we're still left wanting more. Continuing from that IndieWire interview, she asks Hugh, what is the message of the movie? And Jackman says, be careful of the stories you buy into. We get stories on all sorts of levels from the day we're born. We get them from media, we get them from our parents, we get them from religion, from all over the place. But do they feel right for you? Because those stories have been used to do a lot of violent damage in history. What if that story or legend of him, referring to Robin Hood, was actually his own creation to make people do terrible things, to follow him? What if it was all a lie? What if maybe there was a couple of rich people he stole from, but what if he never gave it to the poor? What if he was just a brutal murderer? Now, even at the end of the movie, he talks about how we're not entirely sure. I like that idea, and it is touched on in the movie. It's not, I think there's a lot more exploration there, a lot more that I think it could, the film could dig into, but but I like that idea of just a story being told, and as it goes from person to person, to generation, how it changes, and how we have this idea of someone that, like I said, could be wrong. What if it was all just lies? But maybe somewhere in the middle there is the truth. Maybe he was a hero for some, but also this brutal savage. You know, maybe they're one and the same. I suppose Robin Hood may forever be an enigma, but at least we can take some solace in that this version, he looks like Gandalf and is willing and able to slit a kid's throat and never think about them again. So, The Death of Robin Hood is getting a Vick's Flicks rating of 3 out of 5 stars. When I first saw the poster, it instantly gave me Northman vibes. I wish it was kind of more in the vein of the Northman, but still, I think there is a good movie here that could have been a great movie. So, there you go. That'll do it for this volume of the Cinema Chronicles right here on Nashville Movie Dispatch. Check out all of our work, nashvillemoviedispatch.substack.com. Obviously, search Nashville Movie Dispatch in anywhere you listen to your podcasts. We've got a Sci-Fi Disclosure Day one that came out earlier this month. I did a bonus episode of the Vick's Flicks podcast with a review of Couture, Angelina Jolie's new movie that just came out. Also, I have a ranking of all the Toy Story movies, all 5 of them. I left out Lightyear. I don't count it. I liked it. I did like it, but I don't count it. Only the one that has Toy Story in the title. So, and then a lot more work from, of course, Stoney and Kevin and Sean. Just drink it all up. And until next month, just go see a damn movie.